Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday. It's November 19th, 2025. Today is day 775. I didn't sleep that much last night because I was on the way home, which I am now. I was up for the airport from Jerusalem at about 3 a.m. I'm now on a layover in London, desperate to be home. But I was also shocked when I opened the news, when I got off the plane, I saw, now this was only in English news. It was not, I'm sure it's reported in Hebrew, but Netanyahu gave this speech that was in English only and not Hebrew. So Prime Minister Netanyahu welcomed the UN's vote backing Trump's vision for Gaza. He said the plan will lead to peace and prosperity in the region. He said that he welcomed the UN Security Council resolution. I couldn't believe it. The Times of Israel reported this, which, by the way, the Times of Israel is continuing to count the days of war, today being 775 days. It's interesting that they also don't seem to think it's over. So Netanyahu welcomed the adoption of the U.S.-sponsored resolution authorizing the establishment of the International Stabilization Force under Trump's 20-point plan. But Prime Minister Netanyahu's opponents mocked him. So the leader of opposition since January 23 has been Yair Lapid. And he said that Netanyahu buckled under American pressure. Now, President Herzog had more of a moderated response, saying that his historic move requires responsibility and restraint. The UN resolution states that the ISF, the Stabilization Force, will help secure Gaza's borders, protect civilians, secure humanitarian assistance, train Palestinian police, and this is what's most critical to Israel, ensure the process of demilitarization of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. To the right's chagrin, it also endorses a plan that is a, quote, credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. That was the big deal. That was in the 20-point plan, but it wasn't sure that it would be in the resolution. Now, honestly, I responded to Netanyahu's announcement about all of this by just sending a note to one of our staff and saying, I'm shocked on one hand, and yet Israel says yes publicly, which is what Netanyahu's doing, and then their actions say no. So in a lot of ways, it feels like this is just more smoke. Well, in Gaza, while Netanyahu's been praising the resolution, Israel's military has carried out several airstrikes. This is in parts of South Gaza and Rafah and Han Yunis. There have been 393 attacks as a violation of the ceasefire, which have killed 279 people, wounding 652 since October 10th. Israel's ethnic cleansing of Gaza has killed 69,000 people, 69,483 Palestinians, 170,706 have been wounded since October 2023. A total of 1,139 people were killed on October 7th, according to Al Jazeera. Now, floods have prevailed in Gaza. There's been a lot of rain in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. 17,000 families in Gaza have been affected. This is catastrophic. In the last few days, a winter storm has directly affected an estimated 17,000 families, not just people. We're seeing heartbreaking stories of desperate families who've completely lost everything. They're exhausted. They've been displaced once or multiple times, and they've lost everything in the past 2 years. When children are sleeping in flooded tents without warm clothing or dry beds, many lack the required nutrition with very low immunity and an already traumatized by the conflict. Winter then becomes extremely dangerous. The risks are hypothermia, respiratory infections, and even death. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces shot an Al Jazeera journalist and a child, wounding them during a demonstration in Nur Shams. This was yesterday. Israeli settlers attacked Palestinians and their property in several West Bank towns, including Nablus, where there was a vandalized shop and merchandise was destroyed. Israeli settlers attacked Palestinian olive farmers. It continues to be the harvest season, the end of it, but the harvest season. Equipment's been vandalized. Wafa News Agency is reporting about several attacks in the OPT. A group of settlers entered the town of Deir Balut near Safit and assaulted Palestinian olive farmers. The settlers stole money from the farmers and wrecked their agricultural equipment. In the village of Taibeh, north of Ramallah, settlers attacked and vandalized a Palestinian man's vehicle. Yesterday, after the MBS meeting at the White House, President Trump told reporters related to Saudi Arabia related to Saudi Arabia. We will be doing that. He was referring to the sale of F-35s, explaining that Saudi Arabia wants to buy them and they've become a great ally. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is set to meet the White House for further meetings today. In Lebanon, 14 people were killed by an Israeli air attack. There also were air strikes in Gaza over the last 24 hours. So one person was killed and many were wounded in an attack on a vehicle in South Lebanon. But then there was an airstrike yesterday on a Palestinian refugee camp in the south of the state that killed an additional 13 people. The Lebanese reported that the meeting between Steve Witkoff, the U.S. Special Envoy, and Hamas's chief negotiator, Al-Haya, has been canceled because of pressure from Israel. There's no outside confirmation of this. This would be the second meeting. They met previously in Egypt on October 9th. Now, one of the things I discussed this past week in meetings in Jerusalem was about the power dynamics between the U.S. and Israel. And we should pay close attention to this. Who's calling the shots? How's all this working? Let me just say, a lot of the shots continue to be called by Israel. The U.S. wanted Turkey to be involved in the International Stabilization Force. Israel said no. The U.S., via Ambassador Huckabee, wanted the Palestinian Authority's tax dollars that are collected by Israel to be released. Israel said no. The U.S. wanted to meet with the Hamas chief negotiator via Steve Witkoff. That's the latest. And guess what? Israel said no. So I just want to bring this to our attention. Now, what are Trump's latest comments on Gaza? He talked about this with MBS, the Crown Prince, yesterday, and he had a few key points. He applauded the release of all 20 living captives under the ceasefire deal. He said he's hopeful for the bodies of the few that remain. I believe there are 3 to be returned soon. He credited Hamas for doing a lot of work to return the captives. A lot of people said Hamas would not do that, and they did it. The bodies have been delivered to families. He praised the UN Security Council resolution endorsing his proposed Gaza peace plan, including a transitional governing body, the Board of Peace that he will chair. He said that he expects the board to be large and it'll have the heads of a lot of major countries. He acknowledged that it'll be a little bit messy in Gaza, where Israel's carried out hundreds of attacks, as I've mentioned, even during the ceasefire. But he said it's getting very close to being perfected. Now, reports that we have from the Civil and Military Control Center, the CMCC, are that it's not very close to being perfected. But that's the rhetoric coming out of the White House. Finally, in terms of an update on Christians, today is November 19th, 2025. Today happens to be called Red Wednesday, an annual campaign to support persecuted Christians. Today, the Roman Catholic aid agency CAFOD, the Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, urged the UK government to condemn atrocities committed by Israeli forces overnight, exert diplomatic pressure for a ceasefire and aid delivery into Gaza. Pray for those who've been bombed overnight, wherever they may be in the world, especially in Lebanon and Gaza, where all suffer. Pray for persecuted Christians in the midst of trauma who seek to live out the commandments of Jesus, not only to love our neighbor, but to love our enemy. Continue to pray and to work towards peace in the name of Christ.